All right, Fallon, take us from the very top. Where are you from?
I'm from Lafayette, Louisiana, and I was in Los Angeles for, I don't know, like 12 or so years, and then came back to Louisiana, basically.
And now you live?
I live in New Orleans, and I'm so excited about it. It's the best place yet.
Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome.
Thanks.
We're happy you're here.
I'm so excited to be here.
So where did you go to school?
For college,
Mm-hmm.
I went to SMU in Dallas, so I was in Texas. I just kept heading west and then came back.
All on I-10.
Yeah.
What'd you study?
Journalism, broadcast and print. And then I minored in anthropology randomly because we had to pick one.
What is anthropology?
That's a great question. So basically, I wanted to do more of the like archaeology, like the dinosaurs and fossils and stuff, because I was obsessed with dinosaurs when I was little. But I couldn't get into any of those classes because they were the most popular. So I somehow ended up with Southeast Asia, and so I know a lot about like a lot of horrible things that happened in Southeast Asia and, you know, Cambodian genocide and all that stuff, which we probably don't want to talk about today.
It's not the scope of this show, no.
Not this show. But take two, maybe.
Yep.
Okay, so you studied broadcast journalism, and how did that lead you into acting?
I think they share a lot of the same things. There's a lot of research involved in both. You're constantly changing topics, and I think someone who's interested in different topics is also, I mean, if you're an actor, you're having to be interested in different topics, and your interest needs to be constantly be piqued, and you can't, you know, stick with one thing for too long. So it's perfect for someone who's hopping around. So I would say the research element is similar. I would say, you know, there's a lot of similar elements with production, writing, depending on what area in journalism you're in. I kind of did a little bit of everything in college. And then it really did come in handy for producing movies. I really did find that I used a lot of the skills I learned in college for movie production in different ways.
Was your intention when you were in college to be a journalist, or was that kind of the path you were initially going down?
Yeah, I used to want to be like a Katie Couric. I wanted to be a talk show host, I will say. Like, I mean, that was kind of, I always enjoyed, I did enjoy anything creative, anything with being able to put something together from start to finish. I always felt like I was constantly putting on little plays and shows for my parents and trying to, like, you know, entertain and that kind of thing. So I don't know why they didn't put me in some kind of acting camp. I think they just were like, oh, she'll get out of that stage. But like I go outside and like literally knock on the door, and whoever I would introduce myself as would be me for the day. Like Judy Jetson was a calming character I played. And my mom and dad had referred to me as that for the rest of the day. So, I mean, and I did theater in high school and, you know, school plays and stuff like that. And I just felt like it seemed like such a faraway concept, especially because the industry wasn't, you know, thriving in Louisiana when I was younger. It seemed like you had to be plucked from obscurity and, you know, be in the Mickey Mouse Club or something like that. And it's like, I guess your parents probably had to kind of push you into that a little bit too. Mm-hmm. So it just,
did you ever try to push your parents into taking you to those things?
I mean, I guess I really tried to push them into like always signing up for any kind of like school drama stuff, but no, I don't think I really knew. I guess because we didn't have really the internet, and you know, it just didn't seem like. It really seemed like it was like, you are chosen and someone is coming down and putting you there. I mean, it does happen like that sometimes, but I didn't realize how much power was in my own hands, and I didn't really follow up on that until I was a senior, second semester in college, and told my parents that I was going to move to Los Angeles instead of pursue what I had just studied, you know, for the last 4 years. And they were like, huh? Literally, it was as if, like, I was like, I have some news for you guys. And they're like, are you pregnant? Like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, I'm going to move to Los Angeles. And they're like, you've never even been to Los Angeles. And
what shifted for you in school?
This is really interesting. I took one of those career assessment tests, you know, when you fill it in, and it said I wanted to be an actress, and they're like, "Is that true?" And I was like, "It is." And
it's like one of the only times it's been accurate.
It's like I had to be honest with myself, and I just filled it out, and I just was like, I'm just going to answer it this like no one's watching. And that's what happened. And I was like, I really, really, really do. It was like when you're honest with yourself and you're like, well, I got to give it a shot. And I found, oh gosh, this isn't embarrassing, but I found my first agent I found online, just out on, you know, on the internet. And I messaged her for like, I don't know, $1.50 or something. And told
what do you mean? What do you mean? You messaged her for $1.50?
How to get like acting jobs, you know? And I found this woman who had a managing or agency website, and I contacted her, and she was like, I can just feel through, you know, the web that you have talent. And
oh, wow.
I'm like, okay. And so I kept having, and then finally she's like, you don't have to pay me like $1.50 or whatever it was anymore. And
was it like a psychic hotline, or is this, you paid $1.50 to talk to her on the phone?
Industry insider questions.
It was like a coaching,
Wow.
like
It was
online.
emails back and forth.
From home.
Yeah, from home.
Oh, she was with it.
Yeah.
She knew something. Maybe she was psychic.
This story continues a little bit. So I went to LA for spring break with my parents and met with her, and her daughter took headshots, and then she gave me a monologue from the Blair Witch Project to go in the bathroom at the Four Seasons Hotel to learn.
That's a great script right there.
On the fly. So I'm in the bathroom, never really, I mean, I took some acting classes and like acting electives in Dallas, but I still didn't really know what I was doing. And came out and did it for her. You know, mind you, she's like in a fanny pack, and like, you know, it's just like, this is like the one of those stories. And she told my parents that I have it, and we all, you know, were like feeding into it, and we're like, okay. And so she was like, I'm starting an agency and I love to represent her, and took me on, you know, to meet a couple different, I don't know who these casting directors were, if they were even casting directors, but anyways, she stuck around for a little bit. She put me in some acting classes. I think they were just maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't think she was a bad person, but I definitely think it was, you know, I was baited a little bit on the internet. And so, but that's what got me out there. And so I have to thank her for that.
That's so unique. Like $1.50 got you.
But a good friend that I met in the class, the same thing happened to her, so it made me feel a little bit better. But we became friends, and it was kind of funny because we both ended up, you know, finding different representation and stuff. But it got me out there, and, you know, to be honest, all you need is someone who believes in you. And if you have someone that believes in you, you're gonna do it. So yeah. I don't know. I mean, God bless her for believing in me and getting me out there. Looking back, it's a funny story to tell for sure.
I have to ask, was the monologue the one where it was like, Mom, Dad, yeah. I'm scared? Because that's the only one I can think of.
Yeah. It was between that or...
were your parents there watching this performance as well?
So we were staying in an adjoining suite in the hotel, and I went in the bathroom. My parents sat on the bed in the other room, and then she had my parents step out while I did the monologue for her, and then my parents came back in, and she was like, she has it. And I mean, hopefully she was telling the truth, and she did see something, but I don't think she just knew what to do with it. Yeah. Like, I don't doubt that maybe, hopefully she saw something.
That's amazing.
So from there, you're like, okay, I have it. Mom and Dad are like, okay, you've got it. Let's just commit and take you out there.
Yeah, they said they were going to treat it kind of like a grad school. They're like, well, you need to get trained. You need to actually, like, you know, and I was like, of course. So immediately got into classes and started studying and training, and just kind of, I didn't really know anyone in LA. Like, I remember I moved in and none of my furniture got there, and I had like, I don't know, some lawn chairs, and then I got like a dog a couple weeks later, and it's one of those places where it's very hard there's a lot of people there from all over the place, but it's very hard to make friends. So it felt I remember it feeling very lonely, but it kind of definitely forced me outside of my comfort zone for sure, which is always good.
And so did you just start taking classes and
I bounced around for different classes, and some of them were great, some of them were not. The first teacher that I really found that gave me a structured method was Arthur Mendoza, and it was Stella Adler. And then through him, I also met Monica Garcia and continued studying. Those were the two probably major acting, teachers, influences, etc. that I had out there.
Did you act at all in college?
No, I took some electives and then I took a workshop outside of school, but I wasn't in a theater program or anything like that.
Oh.
So what was, when you had that career assessment, like, had it just been inside you the whole time that you were missing something? Or how do you just go say, yeah, I actually do want to be an actress from not acting in so long?
I think that I just decided it just wasn't available to me. Right. I didn't, try to get into the theater program. So it's kind of when you miss that boat, it's like you're coming out, you usually have to apply and get accepted into those. And then it's not like you could kind of just switch that major, or I don't know. It felt so far out of reach. It felt like a dream, but a dream that's okay, well, this is just real life. No, this is not, I'm not going to be plucked from obscurity. But I definitely would say I don't think it ever went away. I think it just got quieter. And I thought maybe journalism will kind of feed that a little bit, because there are some similarities. Because I truly feel like I was kind of kidding myself a little bit by picking journalism and going into that instead of directly into some kind of theater thing.
Yeah. So you're in LA, your first year, you're bouncing around classes and things. What was that first year like, or first couple years?
It was a little bit like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, just kind of follow the Hilbig Road, just just go to class, learn, and you're going to be okay, and figure out this new craft. And it was exciting because it was something I always wanted to do. So actually being able to do that felt refreshing, and I was being honest with myself. And it's a whole new world too. LA is just kind of I remember going into a club for the first time and being whoa, what's this? Where am I? It's just on a different level. There's just lots to see that you've never seen your whole entire life.
So not only are you an actor, you're also a writer, a fabulous writer, and a producer. So take us on that journey. When did things start shifting? When did you start making these choices?
So basically you get out there, and obviously my first agent really didn't get me as far as I wanted to go, but it's okay because I needed to study anyways. And I feel like everything happens in its own time, and it would have probably been a bad thing if I had somehow lucked up and gotten some big role out of nowhere, because I wouldn't have had a foundation of acting. So basically, it's a whole catch-22. You need an agent to get a job, but you need footage to get an agent. And
you need work to get an agent, and you need an agent to get work.
Yeah.
Right?
So it felt like, okay, well, how do I do this? And there was a girl in a class that I was in, and we were friends, and she was producing a movie, and it was her first acting role. And she was like, why don't you come on set? Why don't you, we need an extra, blah, blah, blah. So I'm on set, and I'm like, whoa. And literally, I'm like, if she can do this, I can do this. And I was like, I'm going to take control of this a little bit, and I'm going to produce my reel, in other words. So that's kind of how I got into that. And then I've always been the type of person, in journalism, you do the whole news package from start to I did love being a part of everything from beginning to end, and having a little bit more to do with the overall project.
Contribution of it. So tell us about your first reel. Did you write it? What was it? What did you do?
Well, no, it's a combination of basically movies that I helped produce and was learning to produce. I mean, at this point, I feel like I went through an unofficial production school because I've learned everything not to do. And it's hard because it's like one of those things where I couldn't, have too much of a say because I had never done that before. So I'm trying to learn from these people and trying to figure out how all of this works. But also, if your name's on as a producer, people think, well, she made that. So it's kind of one of those things where I had to learn to not just, look too much into the past and critique things and move forward and learn, because I guess there's no producer school because there's nothing that can really fully prepare you for everything that's going to go wrong on a set. All the different personalities are going to come together. There's a million things, and there's nothing like learning as you go, I guess, to be a producer. I guess that's probably why it's so hard to figure out how to define the word itself, because there's just no method on how to be a producer. You just kind of become one, I guess.
So how did that start though? So you were like, okay, I'm going to make my own footage. And what was the first thing that you produced and kind of got your foot in the door?
Well, there was a producer on set for this movie I was an extra on, and I talked to him and told him I was interested in doing the same thing. And so he gave me some scripts, and my family helped figure out how to get funding for these films. So we came in more as like executive producers, I would say, in the beginning. And by doing that, the true definition of executive producer is someone who funds a film, but at the same time, just you can have anything to do with how the funding is like put into a film and get that title. But from there, I was able to kind of observe everything and start learning the ins and outs of producing. And that's how I got it. That's how I got into producing for acting. And then once I kind of learned all the skills of a producer, then I wanted to just do all of it, because I was like, well, why not? And that's the direction Hollywood's really going in. At first, I kept it to myself. I tried, to not let anyone know on set. It was almost a big secret, and I kept it very private, because at first it was almost embarrassing because I didn't want people to think that, I'd somehow cheated the system. But for all the movies I had to, be approved by the director, and sometimes there was even a contract where it was like, if I really blew it, like they could kick me right off as an actress. So, I wouldn't say, and I think I did prove myself to a certain extent as an actress, but yeah, it's hard because you think, okay, well, are they going to judge me? Are they going to think like I got this role because I'm producing it, blah, blah, blah. And I think I hid it for a long time. It was like a big secret, and I would even tell directors stuff, don't tell the other actors I'm a producer on the film, because I just want to be an actor and treated like an actor.
That is so funny, because I remember us talking a little bit about this when I first met you.
Yeah.
And for me, it's so opposite. I feel like being just an actor is so powerless, and you're at the mercy of so many people, and being a producer is so dynamic and it's powerful. It's really empowering. But I think it's unique where you come from as an actor with the ability to create content that you can also act in, which to me is the direction, if anybody can do it, they should be doing it, especially today. But I think it's interesting that you came to me in rare form with being like, well, I don't really have as much experience auditioning as most actors. And so that's really interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of like I in some ways, I don't know how else I would have gotten to where I was. And I was really fortunate to get to work with some people and some actors that really had a big impact on me. But I did find myself in a bit of a pickle at one point, which is one of my favorite words, when all of a sudden I have this great reel, right? And all this footage and these scenes with these awesome actors that like everyone loves. And then I'm with these agencies, and it's like they don't really know what to do with it. And I haven't met, many casting directors, because usually I was just going in for the director directly. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, I haven't been through that experience. So it's like I skipped some steps in some ways. And I just felt like, I was like, I got in this weird spot where I was kind of looked at as someone who, okay, well, we love you to be in it. We love your work. Like, we trust you as an actress, but we also need you to produce a film. But in a capacity of like bringing in the finances and all that stuff. And that wore on me at one point, because in LA, you know, they kind of bring that in at the last minute. A lot of times I was thinking, oh, I'm getting a role finally, and I'm going to be able to be a creative producer and do all the things because I've proved myself. And then all of a sudden, they wanted something from me. And if I couldn't give them that, it was like, bye. So that got frustrating, wore on me. And I think that's one of the reasons, because, I mean, Hollywood is, to a certain extent, I mean, money is power there. And it felt like I was trapped in that. So I did keep it on the down low too. Like, after I kind of embraced it for a little bit, then I went back on the down low, because I wanted people to look at me as an actress and give me and get the excitement of being considered for a role without them also, but the catch is, it's like, so that's kind of why I had this love-hate relationship. But then when I got to the point where I feel like I learned what I needed to learn, and writing really gave me that power back of feeling like I was contributing something before, you know, even acting. Like, if I can create something that's great from the ground up, it's mine. It gives me something. It's not like I'm taking someone else's script and coming in as a producer. So writing gave me the power back that I felt like I started to like the idea of producing again, because I just felt like I was like, okay, I'm contributing in a way that makes me valuable to the project.
Right, and it's yours.
Yeah.
It's not for someone else to hold over you. So because there's so many different ways to get the title of producer or executive producer, what would you say, describe for our audience, what is a producer? What do they do?
So there's different levels. There's obviously the executive producer, which can be anything from funding a film to bringing in funding to connecting, you know, people who will fund the film. Sometimes it's an actor gets that credit. Like, you'll see some of your favorite shows and you'll see the titles listed and it'll be executive producer, so-and-so, so-and-so, and they're also the star of the show. And that doesn't mean they came up with the whole concept of the show, but at one point they're a valuable asset to that show being successful. And so they want another piece of it. It gives you ownership, because the more ways you can have ownership in something, probably, you know, the better, and the more you don't have to worry about. I mean, actors, like, everyone thinks that actors are just rolling in the dough all the time, and it's like one of those glam jobs. And I can't tell you, like, you know, the nasty motels I've stayed in, but it's like you have to you never know what your next job's going to be. So I think a lot of actors like to get in on more sides of the production so they can feel that security. And that's also like a great thing that I think is becoming more and more common. And I think the more, I don't know if maybe I wasn't paying attention to it as much, but I feel like in the last couple of years, it's become more of a thing to be a producer and actor. I don't know if that was such a big deal, 8 years ago as it is today. I feel like people are really, you know, it's a power movement, especially with women, because I think that's becoming more and more common as well.
Absolutely. I think it has a lot to do with YouTube, honestly, and just people starting to create their own content. And that was, and probably honestly still is, the only way, or not the only way, but the main way that somebody who didn't have someone in the family, you know, in the entertainment industry, who didn't have those connections to be seen and heard, and to actually, because they were buying it up like the music industry shifted and said, we don't want to take a risk on anyone. We want someone with a following. And we want, you know, and so these people who had the talent to actually do that, you know, because it takes multiple talents to create your own content, were able to actually get into the game. And so I think that, to me, it's so prevalent and so it's so obvious that I often wonder, like, why aren't more actors doing this? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because going the rounds on our end, the typical end, It's just over and over again. And
Yeah.
it's a million yeses before you get to act, which is odd because acting is the only art that is like that. Like a painter just paints and maybe they sell something, but they paint all the time. An actor has to go through, jump through the hoops and get a million yeses before they do their craft. And it's strange. So, yeah.
It's one of those jobs that like you just really have to love it. You
Yeah.
really do. It's one of those things where sometimes I remember telling Mom, I'm like, gosh, I just wish I like wanted to like work at Target or something, like, and just
Wish I wanted to do something easy.
And not that like it's saying working at Target is easy, because I'm sure, especially during a pandemic, that is not a bucket of rainbows. But I'm gonna say that people that work at Target are always in a pretty good mood. So I don't know. Like
when they see you coming, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to do anything, and it's not trying to like demean anyone's job or anything by that, but it's just like something that was straightforard, basically.
Something that had a formula as well. Yeah, absolutely.
And I really love Target so much, so that's probably why that was the first thing that came to mind.
We know.
I spent a lot of time at Target.
Target, do you hear us?
Yeah. My mom was like, you should work at Target. Maybe you can get a discount.
What do you love about producing?
I think when you have so much creative energy, finding more than one outlet is necessary. It's kind of like how, some actors like to sing, they like to dance. They have their fingers out in like all kinds of like different creative areas. It's not like you were saying, it's not just straightforward one thing. So I feel like it gives me multiple outlets to be working on when, I don't have an audition or something. I can still create and do things and feel like I am working towards something, instead of, waiting for the email notification, or because it's so touch and go when it comes to auditioning and acting jobs. So it does give you more power. Something that I initially kind of almost was ashamed of or wanted to hide is the one thing that's kind of made me probably stay in the game and make me feel like I can do more than just act. And so that's probably why I've stuck with it, because the more I've learned, and then at one point people were starting to ask me questions about it and how I did this, because it's kind of an interesting story. They're like, you're not related to anyone, you didn't really have any connections in that world, how did you do it? And I think it was a little bit of God, a little bit of luck, and a little bit of just like determination. And then at one point you kind of turn around and you say, I do know what I'm doing. And I have to give myself that permission, and I have to embrace that.
I want to know about writing. I think you're such a terrific writer. When did that start? Did you always know you were a writer? Tell us how that journey.
I think when I was doing more producing and reading a bunch of scripts and kind of getting the gist of the formatting and everything, and I was seeing a lot of like a lot of things that had, these writers had representation and stuff, and I just was like, I can do that better. And that kind of goes in the back of my head, and not to demean anyone or anything, but like I was like, I could make this funnier. And I started to give notes on scripts and put my spin on it, but then I realized, I'm like, well, no one's giving me any credit for this. And then I just was like, why don't I just write my own stuff? Because I realized, I was like, I can write. I went to school for writing. I wrote, not that it's the same to write for a school newspaper, it is, but it still takes a certain, skill.
Right.
And so I just downloaded a script program and started kind of trial and error formatting and looking back at old scripts and seeing how, the format went. And I just started coming up with stories. A lot of them were inspired from just things that happened to me in LA. And I think with every project I started to write or develop, I became maybe a little bit better at it. So I would say I homeschooled myself in writing scripts. I never went to an official class or anything like that. I just read enough and had enough access to the scripts that I just started writing. And then when I would give it to my parents or friends to read, and they're like, this is good, I was like, okay,
Yeah, it takes like a validator, I think, too.
It definitely
and it
does.
also takes someone who's not in the industry, I've noticed, because that's your audience. Your audience isn't, the stuck up fellow writer who is going to talk about your formatting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of times I get the best feedback just from regular, everyday, I call them civilians, like people who aren't in the industry who just, they get it, and they're like, this is really funny.
That's what I started to study, kind of like, do they understand what I'm trying to get across? Because
Exactly.
I understand it, but if someone who is not reading scripts all day can get it and they get the concept and they're entertained by it, then to me, that's like, okay, I have something here. But if they're like, what are you talking about? Then you're like, okay, back to the drawing board.
Right.
Because you never know. One thing about Hollywood is, some people might have been like, oh yeah, it's great, Fallon, because maybe they thought I had some in with producing and I could put them in a film, because people look at my IMDb and be like, wow, she's figured it out, So you never quite know what the feedback's going to be like from someone in the industry for sure.
Yeah. Sometimes when I read scripts and they're like very formatted professionally, they're too complicated to read. And they're not fun. They're not fun to read at all, but it's so, it's just like I'm trying to put it together as if it were, tech jargon in a way, and I'm not getting the personality of the show, of the writer. Sometimes I love to read scripts that are written almost like books, to where it's like it's just as funny in the description.
Yeah, that's what I loved about reading your work, because I feel the same way. Like sometimes I'm like, am I putting too much like shenanigans in the description? But I'm like, she's doing it too, and I'm enjoying it, so it's a thing. Like I think
it's a thing for people who aren't formally trained.
Yeah.
But it's so fun to read, and that's what I loved about your writing. It's just like, this is so funny, because now it's almost like when you read text and you're just like, I don't know if that person meant that to be funny, but you have to know that person in order to get the joke or to understand the emotion behind it. So if I'm reading, and it's very informal, and I'm understanding how it's supposed to be said, how it's supposed to be spoken, the world, the environment, the personality, it is so much more fun that way.
It is, yeah. Yeah, if you can get a feel for the writer, I mean, a lot of the times the writers, it's some, elements of their life or something that inspired them. And so, I mean, to understand the personality of a writer is to understand their work. So it works, I think.
Yeah, so if you want to send us any of your informal scripts, we won't be stuck up about it.
Because you do write so much, and I think you're a great writer.
Thank you.
And I've read a few of your scripts now. What are some shows that are your favorite shows to watch, or that influence your writing?
Ironically, I love horror. I love drama and really scary things, and like medical, anything with the high drama. I don't watch as much comedy, but I think I thrive as a comedy writer more, or like a dramedy writer. So, it's interesting, because when I want to be entertained as just like the audience, I don't watch comedy most of the time. There are some but it really has to be funny. Like, it has to be, I am slapping my knee, laughing out loud by myself, on a Thursday night in my PJs, loving, like, it has to be like that. Like Grace and Frankie funny, or Will and Grace. It has to be consistent, and it has to keep me interested. So I guess that's how I fulfill that kind of, because I don't find that there's enough great comedy out there. So I kind of feed that a little bit, because I mean, I don't know, like I set the bar pretty high for, something that's funny for myself. So if I'm able to create that, and then I read, I'm like, that's funny. I'm like, okay, that is something that this industry needs more of. So therefore, there's some hope in that, who doesn't want to laugh?
Right. I'm the same way when it comes to what I watch versus my personality and what I write,
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I love being terrified. Like,
that is so crazy. So I'm not the same way when it comes to that. And you really like being scared.
Yeah.
What do you think it is? What is it about horror films that...
I think it helps my anxiety, to be honest. Like, I feel a release of there's something about adrenaline. It's kind of like, I always tell people, I'm like, I like when there's turbulence on planes, everyone's like, why? And I'm like, because don't know, it's exciting. Things are moving. And like, it kind of takes me out of the thoughts in my head. Anything that rips me out of the thoughts in my head and being too, you know, in my own head gives me relief. And that's why I don't necessarily love, you know, like, you know, shredding people's bodies and stuff. I like, you know, suspense and like that, like kind of a quiet place type suspense. So I really do. It's therapeutic to me, and I love being scared. It's the one thing that really rips me out of my own head.
I'll give you that. I think that it gives me the ability to be present. Yeah. You know, in that suspenseful moment, you are so in it and with it. And
yeah, that's the word present. Present. That's what I was looking for.
So being on a few sets and seeing how many people make up making a movie with the actors and the crew and all the people that you don't even see on a set, it's a miracle that anything gets made. Do you have any crazy stories of productions or things in Hollywood or things that you experienced out there?
Well,
that you want to share?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say, like, you know what? I'm going to write a tell-all eventually, and if I don't get, whoever I don't get a handwritten note with apologies from, you know, they're going to be in it. So I'll be waiting for the snail mail. No, I mean, definitely crazy things have happened, but some, you know, wonderfully wild, amazing things have happened. So I kind of have to take, you know, the good with the bad. As far as, I mean, there's this one movie that, like, I really would love to be finished, called Lake Mead, and I think, you know, I think the director, Jessica Chandler Faye, is brilliant, and I think that this project could just really, like, she could show the world what she can do, and we kind of worked on this together from the ground up, but there were a lot of on-set politics that just, I would say, derailed production. And then, you know, it was an independent horror film, and we kind of ran out of money, and the goal has always been to go back and reshoot. And one of the other producers, Eli Roth, like, he's really gotten involved with trying to figure out a way to reimagine this film and bring it back to life. And so what we're doing is we're going to try to do this kind of like art imitates life thing, and my character is going to come back after, you know, years later. So I'm hoping that can actually get finished, because people always ask about it, and it's just, you know, that set, a lot of it was the Wild Wild West. I will say that, because I also, you know, I don't want to out anybody on anything. I learned a lot for sure, and a lot of interesting things happen. But I really think that it could be such a great piece of work for Eli and the director Jessica, and I love both of them. Like, I would love to continue that project and finish it.
How long ago was that? Was that the last project that you did before?
That was, oh my Lord. Was it like 2013, 14? I can't even remember. Gosh. It was a minute. And then, you know, in between that, I did some theater, which I never really thought I was going to do a musical, being in Los Angeles. And musicals really were what they had my heart from a young age. I still get goosebumps sitting in a musical. Like, I, at a young age, was obsessed with, like, Les Miserables and stuff like that, and, like, was the nerd listening to that soundtrack. So I did do that for a while, and that kind of took me further out of the TV movie kind of audition and all that world. But, I mean, there's nothing like stage experience, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I can't wait to go back to it.
You just can't put that on your, you know, it's not the same kind of resume. It doesn't translate the same, because I can't watch, you know, clips and stuff.
Oh, yeah, it's awful to get a live recording of stage.
From the back of the theater with blurry.
If we can somehow figure that out, that would be. So tell us about LA. What brought you back here? Tell us about the differences. How do you feel?
I mean, I definitely am glad I went there. I'm glad I had the experience. I'm glad that I don't think it would feel the same to come back here without having that experience. But LA never quite felt like home. It always felt very lonely. It always felt like I was a tourist in that city. And when the industry started to, you know, get bigger down here, I was like, what? I can be in the South. I can be back around family and do something I love. Because to me, I don't care where I am. If I'm acting, like, or producing or doing something creative, like, I'm happy. So I was never about being in the scene or like needing to be in LA. I just thought I had to be in LA. And then during the pandemic, I finally was like, you know, this is a great time to just pick up, go home. And the minute I committed to that decision and wasn't just like kind of, you know, trying to check to see if it would be a good idea, and because until you move here, it's like it's not really gonna, I had to take that step. And then it was a 180 from my experience in LA and finding representation. I felt like the creative community, even during a pandemic, was like embraced me in such a way that I felt finally like I was part of, like, you know, I was sitting at the right table at lunch. Like I felt like, not to say the cool kids, but I felt like, I just felt like for the first time I wasn't just kind of like, oh, look at me, like, oh, I'm still, like, I just felt like everyone had a different spirit. People, I think, because they are truly doing it, they're not in LA and they're doing it somewhere else, it's because they love it. It's like, and it's just, it's nice to have a mixture of a little bit of everything, and it's not so industry focused. I don't know, and New Orleans is a magical place, and I never found LA to inspire me creatively.
Me too.
And there's something about this city. I don't know what it is. I don't know what kind of, you know, like juices in the air, but you walk down St. Charles, you see the streetcar, you're like, that's just everything. It's a place like nowhere else. You feel like you can be stuck in time one moment, and then you see there's still culture here. Like, I don't find that, like, you know, LA, of course, and New York are like, there's a lot of, but I find that there is diversity here. There's all kinds of people, all kinds of walks of life, all kinds of, it's a melting pot as well here too. I mean, there's more Southern accents for sure, or I don't know. There's all kinds of accents.
Yeah, there's
Louisiana is not like the quintessential Southern accent. It's its own thing.
Yeah, for sure, especially here. Well, and Lafayette.
Yeah, the Cajun.
That is
the Creole.
That is a thick accent. Yeah, I can definitely relate to LA, and just for me, it was a different inspiration. I felt a spiritual inspiration there. I do love the health and the progressiveness, and of course the weather, right? I love being outside, and that was always amazing. But other than that, for me, as far as creatively and spiritually, almost in a way, it was just, to me, LA is a city that is obsessed with being young and cool.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just like, I got out there, I've been out there twice, and the second time I wasn't planning on staying, but I just kind of looked out on an apartment and stayed a little while. But I just remember, man, I wanted to do that my whole entire life. As a child, I was like, I'm going to go to New York, I'm going to go to LA. And the moment I got out there, I was just like, this isn't it. You know, and I was constantly fighting, like, within myself to, like, I need to go back, but I didn't want to quit. You know,
that's what it feels like. Almost like leaving there was like quitting for the longest time to me. And then when I realized, no, it's not. It's like you got to have balance in your life. You've got to be somewhere where you feel happy, where you feel fulfilled, and you know, LA just wasn't it for me in that way. And then also, yes, the obsession with youth. That's one thing that's just like gotta stop, because there's all ages in TV. I mean, we have to have all the ages. So like some of the most brilliant actresses are older women because they have that life experience.
Right.
I mean, most of the time, who's winning the Oscars? You know, it's like you gotta have the older you get, the more depth you get, the more you don't care as much about what people think. And that's when you can truly be free as an artist, when you can just not care. I love playing a character that's not dolled up. I love a character like Patricia in Maladies, where it's just like hot mess, don't care, lipstick all over, whatever, you know, like, because there's something to that gives like the creative mind even more freedom, and you just go to another level.
I think we've gotten better, you know, definitely. But I do remember that's why I wrote Unraveled, was because I heard one of the strongest women in my life say, well, once you reach a certain age, you just want to disappear. You just, you know, you don't want to be seen. And it started me thinking about, like, as women, we're taught to value our youth and our beauty so much that when that starts wearing away, it's almost like, well, what do I have to offer?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I mean, it's gotten way better, and it will definitely continue to get better. But
yeah, the other day I was like, who decided that like 40 was the number that everyone was scared of and scared to get to? And like, then it's like, who decided that, to be honest? Like, because I was thinking about it, I was like, what if it was like 45? What if it had been 35? Like, who are these people that made these rules that we should be, you know, at a certain age, be like, oh,
you need to be this, that, and that at a certain age. Maybe it's because the average life cycle used to be 80, right? Or people are living longer and longer now. So now we're like pushing to like 50 is the new prime. Hopefully
I mean,
we'll make it that way.
Yeah. That's one narrative I hope we're just inching away from, is like having to put a standard on when you should make it by, because I mean, remember
Bryan Cranston.
Julia, and then like, was it Julia Child? That story, I always love that.
That's
like,
amazing.
Who doesn't love when someone just finally goes after what they want? And I think you can have that at any age, and I think it's beautiful, like, no matter what. I mean, it makes a great story too, so sell your life rights.
That's right.
For people that have been inspired by maybe some things that you've done, or choosing a different route, for people that want to go from acting to producing and acting in the things that they produce, what advice would you have for people like that?
I would say, don't limit yourself based on where you started or what was your main focus. I think that if you're a creative soul and you love the art of storytelling, you can be involved in more than just being an actor, or maybe even a producer. You know, I think the thing with this industry is, I think everyone has, you know, their focus or what they've become successful in, but there's a little part of them, I think, somewhere that kind of is interested in all the different jobs. I don't think it's about someone being like, how many different titles can I achieve? I genuinely think that, like, all elements of telling a story, if you truly love storytelling, become interesting. And the more you learn and get on sets and are around people in different jobs and learn and how those contribute to the overall production, it makes you interested in it, I think. And I just think the best thing to do is to learn everything you can, talk to as many people as you can, just get as much information as you can. And I mean, when I was on set, I would try to figure out what everyone was doing on a daily basis. Like anyone from, you know, the PA to the person doing lighting. And I just found that I'm like, well, if one of these people goes away and we don't have a movie. So they're all very important. And then when you kind of realize, like, oof, the sound editor, they have some power, you know, like, or like the actual movie editor, well, they can make or break a lot of things. So it's kind of cool. And there's definitely a little bit in everyone, I think, on those sets, because it's such a it's just you just get to see all the inner workings and your curiosity gets piqued. So follow that. I guess, long story short, if you have this little inkling, don't wait and take a career assessment test like me. Just
You're
explore.
the only one who's ever been that honest, maybe. That
I didn't even know they would give you actor as an option.
It was one of
I think
those.
I got actor too,
Okay.
but like there were certainly questions where I was like, I don't pick the middle, pick 3, like out of 1 and 5.
It was kind of like the only way I felt like I could, like, I don't know. I think being from the South, and then there was something about, like, do a good job, do what you're told, stick to what you're studying, you know, your education is being paid for, and like this, it would seem ungrateful to just kind of like flip the script, you know, play on words, I guess. But at the same time, your body, your mind, like, things will manifest and you'll call your own self out. And until you're you confront your truth, you're going to have anxiety. I was actually at first I was having quite a bit of anxiety and insomnia. And so the reason I got that career assessment test was I was seeing a counselor. I was like, there's something going on with me. I can't be having like a midlife crisis yet. And so they somehow, some brilliant woman decided to sit me down in the office. I mean, they gave me that because they were trying to figure out what I was wrestling with. And I guess another reason I like writing is there's something, you in a page, you can put your truth out there. That's why journaling and all that stuff, it feels so good sometimes. And yeah, literally basically a therapist helped me figure out that I needed to be more honest with myself. And I took that test, and that was the first time where I felt like, I remember turning it in and being like, see what it says, I better know. But yeah, I mean, I was having these moments of anxiety, and I was like, maybe I'm just developing anxiety, but it's really, you will call yourself out. Your body will call you out.
It's never going to leave you. I used to say that, like, the ghost of your dream will always be there. You can run from it. I tried to run from it so many times, but it's always going to be nagging at you. It's always going to be there. Yeah. You have to surrender to it.
Yep. Pretty much. Or it'll eat you alive.
What are some of the proudest things that you've done in your career, some of your milestones that have kind of brought you to this point?
I would say the movie Maladies, I really fought hard for. At first, I just kind of had, a one-day scene. And in that cast, it seemed kind of like, okay, whatever, like a couple lines. Like, I'm still building my career. That's great.
And that was James Franco and Catherine Keener.
Yeah, James's production company was producing it. And he knew the director that wrote it. And it was kind of like they were friends. And someone passed the script to me. And I was just coming in helping with the funding. And, I thought it was a brilliant script, and the cast kept changing, and we were running into the holidays, and there was this one role where it started out, the actress they were picking was way older, and then they started going younger, and finally I was like, well, some of those people are like my age, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, well, I told the director, I was like, can I audition for the role? And I got, a lot of resistance to it at first, and I just wouldn't stop. Not in an annoying way, but I just kept, sending, I think I was probably sending research and ideas I had for the character, and just really going into that, journalism part of me that just loves the research. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to just give me a chance, because people kept falling out for whatever reason. And finally, James was like, yeah, and then the producers were like, okay, but on the first day, if you bomb it. So there was, and the first scene we filmed was the most dramatic scene of the entire movie.
Of course.
Of course. And I was just like, oh. But so there was definitely something in there where I was like, if I bombed it, I don't know who came up with that. It was probably one of the producers. I don't think it was James. But he actually was really, really great on set and embraced me, and literally, I don't know, that cast was just so amazing, and they were so, they didn't know who the heck I was, and they gave me a chance, and I'm proud for pushing for something and somehow it working out and sticking to that and being like, I can do this, and I really, really stuck to that. And that's hard to do, I think, because there's so many times where you just think and doubt yourself in life, and for whatever reason I was like, this is what I love, I'm gonna do this, this is worth the risk, and I did it. And then I made sure I took that film all the way to the Berlin Film Festival, and probably another moment was, it's like I'm in this I think it was one of the largest auditoriums in the world, and I got up in front of that crowd at the end and spoke to them, and I started crying a baby in front of them, and Catherine Keener grabs me and she's like, oh, and I'm just like, that it was overwhelming, and it just felt like such an achievement, and I just was like, what, this is crazy. So that was just that was really cool. That was my moment that I still am like, oh, that was cool. And then moving to New Orleans, that was a big step. That was releasing LA. I had to let go of that ex-boyfriend LA, you know, like I had to let him go. I had to leave. I had to move out. So I left Los Angeles, and I haven't looked back. Not that I wouldn't go back for work, you know, and I don't hate Los Angeles. It just wasn't my place to thrive creatively.
Right.
So many people do thrive creatively there. I just, it wasn't jiving with me. And I think that's why I never felt like home. And New Orleans just really like kind of lured me in a little bit. And my mom lived here when she was younger, and she always was talking about how like it was just one of those places she was so sad she had to leave, and I always wondered why, but now I get it. It's just, I don't know, it's magical. It's my LA, you know, it's my Hollywood. It's magical here to me. It's like being on a set every day.
It really is. I think every city or every place has its own vibe, has its own soul and spirit, and I'm with you on that. Also, in a practical way, New Orleans is a very easy city to live in.
Yeah.
So you're not like scrounging for 3 or 4 jobs and, you know, just really having to hustle just to stay alive, much less have time to be creative. But all the beauty is around you. New Orleans is one of those places where it's so beautiful, and then you turn a corner and it's so ugly, you know, and I love that. Like, I love being in the middle of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm prepping for a humid girl summer for sure. Well, it's here. It is here. Let's not lie.
Crank on the AC.
But
Gonna be here for a while.
mean, I keep looking out the window because it's just like for the first time I like to look out my window. I mean, in LA, unless I was a bajillionaire, I wasn't gonna have the view, you know, like. Most of the time it was like of a dumpster or something. Like it was just like I wasn't getting the views. But yeah, it's one of those places like you can feel like you're a part of the mix here. You don't have to feel like, oh, it's so far. I'm not allowed to be part of that crowd.
Yeah.
You're a part of the crowd here. You just are.
Okay, so you started producing film when film was all the rage, and then we entered the golden age of television again, right? So what do you think is the future of film and television and media?
I mean, I love that there are so many ways to consume content, and I hope it opens up more doors for more people. I hope it makes it like, you know, a little bit easier for actors to get jobs, because now it's not so much about, you know, one network competing against one network. There's a little bit of everything for everyone, and there's the freedom to have very specialized shows. And you know, a lot of times I think people like film and television because they can kind of relate to the characters, or it's going to help them get through something they're going in life. And I love that there's just now more variety, and there's more things that can apply to different people's life situations and families' lives and things that they've been going through. And I think I love a theater. I love going to a theater. I love this. I'll never not love that. And it does make me a little sad that theaters are struggling in that way. And I don't know, there's just something about also because people, you know, most of the time aren't on their phones and you're paying attention. And there's something about that because it's so easy to get distracted. I know I'll start picking up my phone. I'll be like, wait, rewind. I wasn't paying attention. So you're able to give, like, you know, the film the respect it deserves when you're in a theater. So I really hope that comes back around. And I was hoping maybe after a year of everyone being able to get everything at home that maybe they'd want to get out more and go to the theaters. So I hope film, you know, comes back around in that capacity even. I mean, because when I see a film that, you know, is streamed rather than on the big screen, I consume it differently. I don't consume it the same way. And I don't want to say I don't give it the same respect, but I don't know that I give it the same respect at the same time. I don't want to say I'm disrespectful, because there's certainly been films that I've gotten screeners of that I haven't had the opportunity to see in the theater that have touched me, like, in a way that, like, you know, they've impacted me. But I don't know, there's something about a theater that demands a certain respect. And I hope that never goes away. I do love that there's so much variety for people and that anyone can access content, whether it's YouTube, TV, you know. I love that there's so many outlets, and I hope that helps all the actors, and there's more opportunity and jobs for everyone in that way. So I don't know. I think there's a world for both. I really do hope that film can reemerge in, the traditional kind of like theater format where people who can go to the theaters and enjoy that have that. And then also there's nothing like being, with family at home or when you're sick and you can't go to the theater. So I hope they both survive and thrive in their own ways. Is that?
Yeah, I hope the same. I don't know that will be the case because I love going to the theater. I just see it more and more. I mean, it's now that things are open back up. We went to a movie the other day and it was partially full. I mean, I know there's still some limitations as to how many people they can have, but just on a Friday or Saturday night, it was a fraction of what you would normally see. So hopefully they do get there. But also, I think the pandemic helped or pushed a lot of people to realize that they can be at home and get a 70-inch TV and sit around with their family and pause it and go to the restroom and pop their popcorn and be fine. So I don't know what will win. I hope theaters still are vibrant and can survive, but I don't know if they will.
Yeah, that's true. I think TVs will continue to get bigger, right?
Yeah.
But I think there will always be a space for it just because of not just the nostalgia, but setting the tone. It's like you could drink and eat at home or you could go out, and it's still, it's always going to be one of those things. It might not be as prevalent, which is okay because now we're making media more accessible for everyone, right? But I do think that they need to get a little creative. I think it would be cool if they started playing television marathons. Have you ever seen your favorite TV show?
Like when they brought all the Star Wars back into the theaters and just put it,
Right, or if they started getting interactive with all the classics that they play. Or, honestly, what I think is most likely going to happen is that they will have movie theaters inside places like Dave and Buster's with the bowling alley and the arcade.
Kids need to go on dates somewhere, like in high school.
Yeah.
They don't want to sit in their living room with their. That was a whole thing that I thought. I'm like, what do kids go on? What do they do when they go on dates? Like that has to keep being a thing, right?
Drive-through movies are the best as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one other thing that I was thinking about theaters. I'll think about it if I
just think it's amazing that it seems logical that it's like the gift shop experience. Like you get done watching Star Wars and then they're selling you all the little action figures and things as you're walking out. I don't know why they haven't done something like that, but I don't know. I mean, there's so many things to buy at the theater anyway. The popcorn and drinks are already crazy.
And the epic stories. There are certain films that I have to see on a big screen with a sound system and
Jurassic Park.
Huge those big action movies. I want to see that like that. But then there are smaller films that are more intimate where I really like having control over my environment, a lot, so especially with
cry more too.
You can pause it, you can cry out loud, you can use the restroom, you can come back, you can make you can just have a break. But also, I do think we've been really lucky lately. But one of my biggest pet peeves is when people actually talk in the theater, or if they have one of those phones that light up like a flashlight, or their phone is on, or they actually answer the phone. It's just so rude.
Gosh, you've seen that?
Yes, and I've seen. I just think that they should do Bluetooth headphones because I've done that in outdoor theater and it was amazing. Everybody got their own little headphones and it didn't matter if somebody needed to get up and go, you couldn't hear anything and it was much better sound too. But
we are an easier society to distract these days. I mean, I'm the first to admit that. It's because we just have so much going on.
I know we got to wrap up in a little bit, but I wanted to bring back just the experience of going to sell movies and things like that and how maybe the film festival circuit and people that are maybe wanting to get into producing, how does that process work with going to festivals, and then how does what's the business side of that beyond that?
Festivals provide an opportunity. It's like kind of like a showcase. It's an opportunity to get seen by a lot of important people in one place and be spotlighted if you're in competition. But you can also just show your film, and a lot of people in the industry who work in studios, who buy, sell films, finance films. They're attracted to these festivals mainly because they're in interesting cities. Interesting things are going on there. It's a vacation. It's also a way to kind of mingle with people who live in New York and LA and Europe, and it brings them all together. So I think film festivals are a wonderful way to explore the world of production, because you're kind of meeting all the people who move and shake in a different kind of environment, not just trying to get in someone's office, in LA and try to like get in the door. And then also, when you are trying to sell a film and trying to figure out that whole business side of it, of the different territories and, what the actor's foreign value is. There's a whole business side to it that I definitely, recommend that people who are interested in the creative side of production look at as well, because it is a business. And that is one thing that, I prefer the creative, but one of the things that was helpful with me as being a producer is my dad's a businessman, and he was always kind of there to help me with that element. And I really think that is one of the major things that still gets overlooked. I mean, creative people get so excited about ideas and things, and I can't blame them. I'm that way too. But to really study it as a business and look at it as a business, not, in a I know they say it's not show friends, it's show business, but it really is a business. So you have to respect the business of it. And by respecting the business of it, I mean, you are still making sure the story is a priority, but you kind of come at it from the beginning as protecting all elements, because what I've seen in production, especially independent production, is the excitement, getting the funding, and then all of a sudden you're halfway through or towards the end and you don't have enough money and you haven't thought the whole thing through as a whole, business plan. And so that is the key, to feel like you can get all, the homework stuff done with the business and the finances and stuff in the beginning. And so then creatively play. But my biggest piece of advice is to make sure that you have been educated in the business of film, and that you have talked to people who have been successful in that way, and that you bring that in with your creative side. You got to make those two counterparts equal, because that's really how a film can be successful. Because as much as we want it to just thrive off of just being creative, it has to also, the world, that's how the world works.
Mm-hmm. So Fallon, do you have any upcoming projects?
Actually, I do. With the two people sitting in front of me.
Oh!
We had a couple different ideas, and the one that we really gravitated towards right now, I think, is the Christmas project, and we're really all excited about that. So I'm not going to give too much away, but we're in the pre-production developing stages, and we're hoping not this Christmas but next Christmas that it'll be out there. And it is so fun to collaborate with people who care about all elements of film, and don't just have one agenda, and are creatively open and just there because of the love of the story. And it makes so much of a difference when you're working with someone who just genuinely loves telling stories, and because they know it impacts people and it makes them feel a certain way. So I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited to work with you guys, and I couldn't be more pumped up.
And so, just tell us who wrote the script and who's starring in it.
I wrote it, and then I wrote myself a big little hunky role in there.
Absolutely, it's so fun. It is so cute, and just everything a Christmas movie should be. And it has music, which is something that we all share a huge passion for.
Definitely, music can make or break a movie, especially a horror movie. Like, you listen to a horror movie on silent and you're like, okay. But music is something that has always moved me, and I use it a lot for characters. Like, sometimes I'll have a full on soundtrack for a character I'm playing, just for it evokes things. So I do love music, and that's another thing that I've spent more time doing, especially during the pandemic. working on and working towards.
Yeah. And I think as long as I can remember, I've wanted to do a Christmas movie. So
as long as I've known you.
Yeah. So I am very excited to work with you as well and collaborate and kind of see what we can all create. And I love the energy that we're putting out there and something good and positive and fun. And I think everyone's going to love it. So I can't wait to tell people more about it once we get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will just say, I will tell you the same thing that I told Jason, is that I have been praying and waiting for you. I am so blown away by your work ethic and your creativity. And it's just from the moment I met you, you know, and just kind of took in your story, I was like, oh, well, this all makes sense now. Because just as for those of you who don't know, I met Fallon as a student, and our sessions were just so, I was like, wow, like she is into this. Like she is as into this as I am into this. And that's very rare for me to find. And I'm just so thrilled. We feel so grateful to have you and to welcome you here to New Orleans. And I'm just so excited for all the things that we're going to do together.
Same. We should cut before I cry.
I know. Oh. Thanks, Fallon.
Thank you.